What's up, everyone? You're listening to LockPod, simply the best blockchain and NFT podcast made for legends. Now, without further ado, let's get this started. In this conversation, LockPod host, myself, and the Legends of Crypto game designer, David Freed, are joined by the head of NFT and gaming at Polygon to discuss the future of NFT games and how blockchain technology and NFT gaming will fundamentally change the gaming industry.
So I head the Polygon's gaming and NFT ecosystem, and I've been a part of Polygon's team for almost 2 years now. And personally, I and Polygon teams we were pretty much aligned towards the gaming and NFT side of things because this was something we have been bullish at for almost since when company started. So we have continuously chased games, and that has been the major part of my crypto journey as well in this industry, NFT and gaming side. So I think now is the time we are trying to expand on the gaming NFT side a lot. And since Web2 NFTs went mainstream, all the Web2 folks are also looking into this, trying to make some experiment. We are doing some experiments as well along these lines. And what would be the next big thing in the gaming NFT space?
When you want to introduce NFTs, how would you explain what an NFT is?
So I would say in terms of just NFT, I think a lot of people relate to them, not the crypto folks. Let's say the folks who are not that crypto savvy, who don't know what is it actually. You can just say some people feel it's just a JPEG, right? And why it has so much value and all these things. Let's come to the full form, like non-fungible assets. It can't be broken down into different segments or broken down into different parts. But the major part is when you mint an NFT, it is immortalized on the blockchain. You can never lose it. Let's say any NFT minted on Ethereum, Chain, and everything, it will be there present for the entire life. You can't lose it. Uh, a JPEG would be an insult, but still something that has been immortalized on the chain, and it has some intrinsic value as well. But not all NFTs have. But putting in different situations and associating with different sort of mechanics, it can definitely have a lot of intrinsic value towards this as well.
Well, it can, but it can also, it can be stolen in the same way that another asset could be stolen through hacking or things like that. So it's as secure as your wallet is. But in terms of the value that it adds to gaming, I think that there's a huge segment of the population that feels like they play this game for years, and then they get to the end of their time with that game, and then they're like, well, now what? What happens to all that time that I spent here? And I think that NFTs are a pretty cool solution to that because you've built up value over that time.
Yeah, definitely. I think exactly like you put it. Because any game you play in the current space, all the gamers are primarily looking for is, I think, the dopamine and the excitement of clearing this level, then going on to a different level, and sometimes they even spend money. Because I haven't been a proper gamer in my life, but I've played games and I've spent money on them as well. But I haven't got anything in return till now. So I think this is the best aspect of blockchain gaming is you're getting something in return while you're enjoying the game, having the same user experience and enjoying everything, and still generating some passive income as well. So I think the Axie is really booming these days, and best example of play to earn would be Axie Infinity.
Yeah, what could you tell us about Z Infinity in terms of how it's going and what you're going to do with it?
Sorry, I missed the last part.
Where is it going, and what are you going to do with it in terms of how players interact with it and things like that?
I played Axie, I think, a year back. I think lots of mechanics have changed since then. You buy some Axie initial level. If you, I also hold some Axie. There's Axie breeding, and the value also changes according to the time the levels increase. And in the game mechanics, whenever you Axie have a better chance to generating more revenue out of it as well. So as the Axie, I think just yesterday there were some talks about Mystic Axies being sold around 100K, 80K, and all these things. So they have generated a lot of value to the through the Axie ecosystem as well, because of the breeding process in the game itself while you're playing and doing all these things, clearing that level as well. You can see as Pokemon, you must see Pikachu became Raichu, something along those lines as well. The value got increased pretty much. And since Axie now, because earlier people were looking into NFT segments and what is happening here and everything, but they were still not playing these games. They felt like, okay, these guys are doing good stuff, but nothing, I would say it was not mainstream. So we didn't have that sort of audience. But since now the audience is here, people are playing games, Axie has I think most number of DAUs in the Web3 space around 120K or maybe more than that now, because it has increased like many folds just in the last months. Scarcity is also increasing, so that is also driving the value of all the Axies and everyone involved.
Yeah. How do you see these NFTs transferring from game to game, or do you think that it would mainly stick to one game at a time?
Let's say metaverse compatible NFTs, which can be traded or which can participate into different metaverses. I think best example would be, I think Alethea doing something along these lines, and few other projects also have seen they're working. So all their game assets, just in-game assets or normal assets, can be used with all the different metaverses. They can be presented there. To be honest, I think I haven't seen a game till now in which two games can interchange their assets, and their assets can add utility to the another game as well. It might be a little tricky, but certain platform, let's say there's a platform called RCT AI. They are a pretty good platform. They are working on majorly on the metaverse side. So they have a mechanism in which whether you can bring CryptoPunks or maybe Aave Gochi or any of these NFTs, you can just put it there and they'll have all these punks and everything have certain attributes. It can be your avatar itself and it will behave accordingly to your needs, and all the attributes will also be showcased in the metaverses. So I think that's a like really a unique value. CryptoPunks can interact with Gochis or maybe Axies, but cross-platform interaction is like really big, one of the biggest things happening.
Yeah, I mean, as a game designer, I have to think about what am I going to do when I get a bunch of NFTs from another game coming into my game, and how am I going to transfer all of these things and make them have value in this game? And
yeah, definitely, because you have to attach some utility to it towards it as well. All these game assets are coming, how they are interacting with your existing game mechanism or your existing assets, how the value is being generated. Maybe some other games, say from X game, assets from X game go to the Y games ecosystem, they get logged there, or maybe just staying there, those NFTs, and you are generating some revenue, or maybe just mining some NFTs from the existing game itself. I think we can come up with a bunch of different mechanisms around these things, but it can be definitely figured out. Definitely add a lot of value to the each other gaming ecosystems as well.
Actually,
oh,
so David, I kind of have a question. I kind of like a scenario, and I'm kind of trying to imagine like how it would work out. So if me and Trey were playing, let's say LOCG, we both like we won a few decks of cards, or we traded them. So how would that work? We can use the cards to sell them as cryptocurrency, and then there's also like a possibility where we can use the cards in different ways.
yeah, I mean, the sky's the limit, really. It's just in terms of what companies do we partner with, and that's the exciting area. So let's say that Nintendo decides to get in on this, and then they create Pokemon for each of the cards that we make in LOCG. Then we would see a situation where you could play LOCG for a while, and then when the new Pokemon comes out, you jump into the game and you'd already have like a little army of Pokemon related to the LOCG cards. But the thing is, and the scary part in terms of me being a game designer and having to deal with this functionality, is that some designer has to spend the time to design what each of those things are. And my biggest fear is that a lot of companies in doing these partnerships may sort of just do the bare minimum, which would be like, oh yeah, I guess that's we'll tint this jacket that we have red, and we'll just turn that really cool card into this like object in this game. Because there's a really terrible way to do it, and then there's a really cool, integrated, and thoughtful way to do it. And it really will come down to how each game designer approaches it when these sort of opportunities arise. So yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot recently.
You know, that actually makes me super excited to be able to do different things with those kind of cards. And I mean, it really changes gaming as well, doesn't it? And it really changes like what it means to collect things, because you play with those collectibles, so they're actually like, they're not just collectibles. There are things that you can use, and when you finish the game, when you finish the last level of any game that's related to this, you have something that's of some use. It's not just, it's over. Like you said in the beginning, it's like you play and it's over.
Yeah, definitely. If you say, I've seen like Need for Speed Most Wanted, so you get pink slips and you collect all these cars, and you have them in your garage. But after the game finishes, what to do with them? Your game is done. Your profile is just there. And I think if we can, let's say the Most Wanted cars, I can get those as NFTs. I have the pink slips of all these things, so I can just trade them onto market itself after the game, after I finish the game. And even during the game as well. There are certain cars I don't want to use. I just got them for free. So I think
Yeah.
that really attaches a lot of value towards this as well. I can still be connected to the game and do certain things there after finishing it too.
Well, I keep thinking of these funny scenarios where there's like just for example, like let's say that they do a Metroid game now and that becomes an NFT. And then there's another designer like 10 years from now and NFTs are still a thing. And they played that game before they got into the game industry, so they remember it fondly. And so they put NFTs, they link to those NFTs and they make them have value in their new game. And it's all these throwbacks to these things that they're nostalgic for. So it's really interesting to think about how later on down the line, because this blockchain will always exist, how designers' personal biases and nostalgia and fondness for old games can actually come back and revitalize old franchises and make people go, oh my God, now I got to go play this game from 10 years ago. So then I can get the NFTs to use in this new game because the designer really loved it and made it super OP. I think that that's a pretty cool scenario in terms of like if you've watched Ready Player One and the sort of, I mean, it's obviously exaggerated and hyperbolic to quite some degree, but the idea of the auteur designer who controls everything in this world, that as game development becomes easier through potentially AI and other things that can do coding for you, that's sort of like niche nostalgic love for old games can be really interesting with NFTs around, especially if it's a long-lived market, which I hope it is.
On the market side, I think we are pretty bullish on the gaming side now. Like just a few weeks back, Nvidia announced they're exploring this metaverse side and NFT side. So I think now the major players are also getting in. This is pretty much, you just scratched the surface what can be done here, and I think play to earn in gaming is pretty much the next biggest thing that is happening in the space, and or that will definitely bring the next 100 million users to the space as well, because it's pretty easy. You don't want to if you go to someone who's not that crypto savvy, who doesn't understand this side of industry, and you try to explain him how these complicated technologies work, what is DeFi and all these things, he might get confused and he'll say, okay, I'm staying out of it. I don't know what is this. But if you ask him, just play a game, bro. So it's pretty easier for him. And if he says he doesn't want to play, you can say, okay, you might maybe be able to generate some passive income out of it as well. So that will definitely lock in interest.
Right,
so I think this is the
So people go from like spending their time in games to actually like investing their time in games. In that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, for most people the answer is no. I mean, like if you think back to, I don't know if you guys ever heard of EverQuest, which was the first 3D MMO RPG.
I love it.
But there were people who actually made a substantial living. Yeah, they made a substantial living farming items in EverQuest and then selling them on effectively the black market, but it wasn't really illegal back then, or at least the game creators didn't seem to mind too much. And they would not only pay for their own subscription, but actually like literally make a living, making thousands of dollars a month selling those items. And with NFTs, I think that it's not just incentivizing it, but making it automatic for every player of every game that has NFTs. And I don't think people have become aware of just how substantially that will change how people play games, because there are people who right now will buy a game just to farm the achievements, but now those achievements can actually be NFTs themselves that they can sell to other people.
That really takes me back, because other than EverQuest, I used to play RuneScape all the time. And on RuneScape, people used to make money gold farming. You're just making a ton of gold and selling it on websites, or even in school, people would go around like trading. They trade their accounts with each other, and they'd spend money on that. So it was a lot of like, it was a whole business. People made a living off of that.
Yeah, and still do to this day. I know there are still people who are playing RuneScape. Shrey, is there any games that you've played that you're kind of nostalgic for that you would like to see NFTs in?
I've played some Counter-Strike, and I think pretty much all these AAA games and all these things, I think if you can get the things I'm collecting there, maybe the Kevlar, all the ammunitions and all these things, if they can be tokenized, then that'll definitely bring a lot of value to everyone, and that'll something bring a lot of spark in my eyes as well, because this is something that I played around 12 years back, and like played it heavily across pretty much like 7-8 hours a day. So I think Counter-Strike would be a game I want like all the assets to be tokenized and maybe traded on the OpenSea and open markets as well. And second one would be, I think I already said Need for Speed, because Most Wanted was something I it when it I didn't know much about all these complicated games. And I had a PC which could only support this Need for Speed Most Wanted. So I think that was one of the first games that I actually finished. So I definitely all those cars which were in my garage to be NFTs.
Yeah, definitely. So there was a gambling scandal with Counter-Strike. People were rigging. They were giving away items in Counter-Strike, but they were rigging the game. And I'm wondering whether NFTs would have helped or harmed in that situation.
So how I see it, because everything on NFTs, when it comes to NFTs, everything is pretty much recorded. You have, I think, the basic essence of blockchain. Everything is on chain, and all the transactions would be there. So I think that might some way be adding value towards it. You maybe reducing this rigging that was happening back then. So
Yeah,
I think I am in pretty much in favor of this.
Yeah, I think I'm in favor of it too, because it doesn't stop the gambling, but at least it makes it a bit more secure. And then you can check the blockchain and see who did what.
Who did what? Yeah.
And that's, I think, quite important to having figured out what was going on in that situation.
There's a concept of like centralized gaming versus decentralized gaming, and NFT games they're on the decentralized spectrum of that. So how do they contrast? How do centralized games contrast from decentralized games? Like what are the biggest takeaways here?
So pretty much how I see is we are still, I would say, in the nascent stages of this of the gaming, because the way I see it, we don't want to say it because all these gaming giants, they don't care about decentralization, and they actually should not. Gaming is not about decentralization the way I see it. It really is not. So they shouldn't care, but definitely ushering this NFT economy into the existing ecosystems as well. I think, let's say, if Call of Duty wants to, like, Call of Duty is one of the biggest games. If they want to introduce NFTs into their ecosystem, it will definitely be adding a lot of value, and maybe they can generate $1 billion of worth of extra revenue every year. So I think that's how that would be definitely they would also want to explore. I think we're still in nascent stages of this, and when it comes to decentralized gaming per se, I think there are so many games. We have seen games. I've like personally tried out some of the games as well, and I felt like we're still very far behind. We can maybe count on our hands. Like there are only a handful of games which are like doing really great. Otherwise, players pushing these games, they haven't been like game developers for long. They don't have specialization on this thing. So they've been like pushing games in like 2 months, and I don't think that's how gaming works. If you want to build a very good game, you have to spend time with it, maybe at least a year, maybe more than that, to finish an entirely good game. And the way I see it, there are still a lot of challenges and many folds of technological advancements required. But still, I think we are now is the time we are pushing things, and these folks are also looking at. I think we'll definitely bridge the gap between these two things, maybe in the next few months or maybe in a year. But there'll definitely be UI. It's more of a UI UX war. I think the best user experience possible for all these games. Then I think everyone will want to integrate NFTs and introduce and play to an economy into the current ecosystems as well. Just taking an example of Call of Duty itself, they have so many assets and like whatever billion. I think more than 100 million users. I don't know how much DAUs Call of Duty must have, but all these transactions are happening, and then all these Kevlar and all these, if they are tokenized and they are being exchanged on the blockchain itself, I think it will be like billions and billions of transactions per day. To be honest, we don't have the infrastructure advancement or any chain ready to handle that kind of load.
Well, there are certain games that I think sort of go down this decentralized path already. So if you look at like a game like Roblox, where players are contributing to the game world all the time and creating new game types and stuff, I think that sort of game is rife with possibilities for NFTs. Not only because you can monetize your own game with NFTs, but because it's all entirely in the player's hands, and you don't have to get permission from the game developers anymore. But the big fear there, I guess, is people doing bad stuff with that, like uploading their own art that is, it could be pornography or something. And
Yeah.
how do you police that? Can you see it in the blockchain and remove it? And if you remove it, you're removing value. And then do players trust in that game's NFTs anymore? Or is it just removed from that one game and then that NFT still exists and thus can still be used in other games? Like, there's a lot of questions around that. And all of these solutions tend to have to come from a central authority for a particular game. So when you have decentralized gaming without that sort of stamp of approval from the developer, things can get dangerous real quick.
Yeah, I pretty much agree to it as well. I think it's more about what sort of mechanisms we are putting. We also placing there. Let's say I gave an example of Call of Duty. So I think their entire game mechanism pretty much ready. We just want to. I think we'll have to brainstorm a little more on this. But let's say they're keeping they're keeping the marketplace exclusive. All the assets only in Call of Duty can be minted as NFTs, and they can be only traded on Call of Duty marketplace. So that's how I think the way I'm seeing is it's more about rather than getting onto a decentralized platform and all these things, just integrating, just attaching value of NFTs to their current ecosystem that can be visible on the blockchain, and not pushing them to go fully decentralized or anything. They can just stay where they are, and all the NFT will definitely have to exist on chain. And any bad stuff, anything, let's say the way you mentioned, I think that can be avoided via that.
Yeah, for sure.
Because if I go to these multi-billion-dollar folks who are generating billions of dollars in revenues, they won't care about decentralization.
No,
they would see, okay, if I'm able to generate revenue out of it, and if this seems good, so they'll go for it.
Yeah, I think that there'll be an initial backlash or at least resistance.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
yeah.
And I think
I can't go to Activision and ask. Yeah, exactly. I can't go to Activision and ask just change a 90% of architecture and come on board. See solidity.
Yeah.
So definitely there'll be definitely a lot of backlash.
But it also like changes the entire experience for the gamer themselves, right? Like there's always that fear, and myself included. I've played a bunch of games that I've spent so much time in. Whether it's like, let's say, Club Penguin, which is like something that Disney used to own a while back. Where the game shuts down or servers go missing, or maybe developers get in trouble, so something happens to the game. Point is, all your information, all your assets, your account logins, everything is on this centralized game, on these developers, on these servers. So when they're gone, everything you did is gone. And some people really spend a lot of time on games, and even professional gamers, that's their job. So decentralized gaming actually brings a fix to that if you don't have people on top.
Actually, yeah, now that you put it that way, I'm thinking like about fan-made remakes and fan-made like, I don't know if you remember, there was like the classic Australian Blizzard World of Warcraft's classic Australian server that they did shut down at one point. But let's pretend there's a world where World of Warcraft shuts down on its own, but it had NFTs. Then someone could theoretically allow people to get all their stuff back by reverse engineering the servers and putting it back up, and then people could go back in and play WoW again and have all their stuff that they remembered. So it sort of preserves all your characters permanently in that blockchain. I mean, as long as you keep your wallet, of course.
Yeah.
And that's actually an interesting thing to think about, is that for as long as this blockchain and NFTs exist, and as long as games are being made with them in mind, 20, 30, 50, potentially 100 years down the line, someone could revitalize an ancient game and you could pass down the wallet through your family, and someone could go in and play your old, Warcraft or, whatever character, and have all your stuff.
I was reading something and I saw the value of NFTs. But let's say whenever family members marry, you pass them on some gifts, or maybe some family heirloom like a ring or anything. But maybe somewhere 30 years down the line, if someone is getting married, or maybe you're just pushing their marriage card or anything, and you want to give them it, they don't have to maintain it or take care of it. It is always on chain, and that way NFTs can serve as a part of as a memorabilia as well. rather than being just play to, and it can add some emotional value to it as well. So or something sentimental too. And maybe let's say even a games, or like I mentioned, like I played the Need for Speed, I think like 15 years back. If I see, okay, I played that game and NFTs were still there and I just opened the game today and I can still see my assets there. So I'll try to do something. It definitely adds some sentimental value towards it as well. And I can pass it to maybe someone in my family or someone in the younger generation as well. Maybe after 10 years, after 15 years, it's still there. So yeah.
I look forward to that.
It's actually super cool, man. Like imagine you can just like keep passing on, I don't know, some sword you use in the dungeon to like next generation of your family, the next one, the next one. That would be that'd be epic.
Not only would it have that, but you could trace it down the blockchain to see where they got it from. Like if it was originally from the game. So it's like a one handed down direct from my grandpa did this himself. He killed Jaden in World of Warcraft or whatever, and got this sword and then hands it down to their great grandson. It's kind of ridiculous when you think about it that way, but it is also extremely cool. Like I have old games that I've kept. Like I have a PlayStation 1 cartridge with old saves on it. I don't even remember what most of those games are on there. I know it's probably Final Fantasy VII, at least that. It's a lot of JRPGs, I'll say that. And I can imagine a time in the far off future where my daughter just finds this box filled with like old game cartridges and stuff and decides to like go to like an emulator download place and figures out it's a PlayStation 1 and finds a reader somehow for this thing and then manages somehow to get into the game and see all the things that I accomplished in like, Final Fantasy VII, however long ago I did that. And that sort of connection to your parents and stuff, because so much of what we do is online and digital, it's quite interesting. And then if that were an NFT, then that's value that my daughter or granddaughter or whatever has now unlocked and can use to better herself in whatever's going on in the future, So it's just it's just a fascinating thing to think about.
Yeah, definitely.
So we talk about digital ownership a lot when it comes to NFTs, but what does it really mean to own something in a virtual world?
I think we definitely like own a lot of things in our PC and we store a lot of stuff there, but it's more about the interaction part, how you interact with those things, because everything, any photos or anything you store in the computer, they don't have much utility to it. But when it comes to NFTs, I think we are past that. People are doing so many things. I think with audio NFTs and with people are selling repositories of different programs as an NFT and different things. I think there are just so many mechanisms involved in NFTs as of now. And I think even in virtual worlds or anywhere, you are interacting with them. They are presenting some sort of utility to it as well. And I think we already discussed about the memorabilia part and all these things. I think they add a lot of value, not just the monetary value, but the fun part is also there and the storing the part is also there. So I think everyone used to connect like Pokemon cards, or I did. So I lost them when I was like in second or third standard. So it's like very long back. I had a box, I created everything on it, and I stored like thousands of cards there. I used to eat a lot of Uncle Chips and all the Cheetos and everything and collected those cards, but I lost them. But if they were NFTs, they would still be on chain. And I can still be able to interact with them, right?
I've lost thousands of Magic the Gathering cards over the years that I wish I could get access to again.
Like the term digital ownership is not really new. It's been around for a while. And I kind of think of these games that I've played, and I've tried making money a lot while playing games. Like that was my thing at some point. I went through a phase where like I'm telling all my friends, let's play this game because you can make real money. And like how they usually work is the currency you make in the game can be converted into USD or whatever other currency. So the terminology has been there, but it's not really been accurate. You don't own these things because again, if the game disappears or something happens and you just lose access, you lose access. It's really over.
Or worse, the developer just decides to shut down, or they take it away because they don't like what you're doing, which they can do.
Which they have every right to do, and then it's a game over for you. Most people are digital renters. They rent in these games. They don't own things in these games. Whereas like NFT gaming actually, brings truth to the term. You have something in the game, you can take it out. You can do things with it. You can transfer them. You can loan them. You can sell them.
Right. It does bring up an ethical question because one of the things that plagues MMORPGs in particular, especially WoW, is gold farmers. And if you don't know, gold farmers are basically typically like kids in a sweatshop environment with just PCs, with air conditioning though, because you don't want the PCs to overheat. So maybe it's not as bad as a sweatshop, but you get what I'm saying, is that they sit there and they play World of Warcraft like 20 hours a day, just farming mobs, getting gold, getting items, and then they give that all to another character who then puts it on the black market and then sells it to other people in the game. And in doing so, they cause a significant amount of extra, what we call mudflation, which is inflation in a multi-user dungeon. So they cause inflation of the economy and devalue the currency. And I'm wondering if NFTs would incentivize even more of that and perhaps create all these farmer shops all over the place, similar to how we're seeing cryptocurrency sort of usurping the GPU market as everyone tries to farm crypto. Would we then see effectively, I mean, it would be mostly bots, I would hope and imagine, but we could also see a lot of a game player could obviously do this more efficiently and knowing exactly where to go and what to get. And I'm worried that we might see sweatshops of people farming NFTs, and there's no way for the developer could ban the account, but the NFTs will still exist, so they succeed no matter what. And what do we do to stop that?
To be honest, I think, in my honest opinion, I would love to see this sort of era also coming up, and where people are doing these sort of things. But I think there are certain things you just can't stop. I think that is not something like blockchain was made for. We can't control that, and so whatever we try, this would be something like really tough to regulate and control. But you have to, let's say, be prepared for certain things and maybe place some countermeasures for that. Like a certain asset can be traded only these many times, or just any countermeasure for that. I don't have anything in particular in mind, but something like this. After this NFT, it changes hands like 10 times or maybe 100 times, then it starts losing its intrinsic value the more time it gets traded. So the power of the NFT and the play to economy model as well, you'll have to place it accordingly.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're saying that as the NFT changes hands multiple times, it gradually decreases in value.
Maybe let's say after till 100 times, it's okay. It's fine. I think it's like 100 would be less. Let's say 1,000 times, it's good. Its value is also increasing. Like the levels are clearing up, and now the game is also taking a notch. But after linearly it decreases its value as well. Let's say after the 1,000 one time, now it started as taking a decreasing road trajectory as well. Now you can play some. I think these things can be hard coded into the contracts itself after a while. After, let's say, these many number of times, the value gets reduced of the NFT in some way.
Yeah, I could see that going wrong too, but
yeah, definitely. I'm just shooting ideas out of my head.
Yeah. No, I actually think the solution is more of a socio-economic one, in which if we have a world in which no one would have to do these things in order to make money, in which they could just say, nah, this is boring, I'm going to go do something else, where all their basic needs are met, then this is not no sweatshop would be a problem anymore, because no one would do it. It'd be like, there's no way I'm sitting here and doing this for 20 hours straight. I'd rather go sit on the farm or whatever they're going to do. So I mean, it does require that sort of utopian Star Trek future that I think we all want. But I don't know if that's forthcoming yet. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I think we are pretty much far from it. I think I would love to see. I think this is the bad side of the industry, but still, I'm pretty much looking forward to this sort of phase as well. When this sort of adoption comes in, maybe 10 years down the line or 15 years down the line, we'll be able to see this.
I hope so.
Okay, then we are on the same page.
Another big worry when it comes to like NFTs and NFT gaming and like the whole sphere is gas fees. What do you think are some great solutions for it? Like how does Polygon approach these things?
So I think it's more about the scaling. Scaling means because I think Ethereum chain will finally be the settlement layer for everything, and the main vulnerability between all the L2 solutions can just ensure we can shoulder the load of the transactions and everything. And like we are doing, we are just putting it at every 30 minutes, all that we project a Merkle route or to the main chain, which carries the whole bunch of lots of transaction hashes. I think that's one of the best ways to go about it. And Ethereum can be the main settlement layer to verify and ensure security for everything. I think on Polygon, minting NFT costs around $0.001. In like $10, you can mint around billions of NFTs. Because with all this play to earn economy and generating revenue, you definitely want to keep the minting cost low. Otherwise, you'll be losing money easily and your business model will be in tatters if you're spending like $10 or $20 or maybe more just on minting one NFT. So let's say any game who has wants to bulk mint NFTs like thousands and millions of NFTs. So let's say a 1 million NFT, $10 to mint each NFT, you're spending like $10 million just on minting NFTs. So that is not scalable in any case. So I think all these advancements, and I think Polygon is pretty well best positioned there. I think we are already carrying 85 to 90% of all the Ethereums, of all the chains, gaming and NFT projects. If you have heard about Neon District, they did a campaign, I think couple of months back, in which they minted 150K spots in Neon District, and they just dropped it to random users, and they did it under $1. So I think that's the kind of user experience everyone wants, and the cheap and the fast solution as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I
Some of the fees are ridiculous, I must say.
Yeah, I was speaking to one of there was a guy. I think he was a lawyer based out of States. So he said he was just testing the Polygon chain. He minted around 1 million NFTs. It cost him around $3 or $4, and in 5 to 7 minutes he was done with it. So I asked him, why were you minting 1 million NFTs, and what was the point of it? He was saying, I was just testing the chain. Okay, I said, okay, thank you, thanks for doing that.
Okay. I just put something in my mouth like an idiot.
Yeah, I did the same actually. It's finished now, luckily.
So there's a lot of buzz about NFTs being a cross between gaming and decentralized financing. What does that really mean? Because I honestly don't understand.
There are a lot of options which can be explored. Let's say NFT mining or staking tokens. I think this is like the easiest and the best way for let's say any platform has its own token as well, trade ERC20 token. So certain platform like Trace mechanism, like you come and stake certain number of tokens, and more number of tokens you stake, you can easily mine NFTs. The more number of tokens you stake, you'll be able to mine the most valuable NFTs. I think that's one of the easiest ways to which can appreciate the value of the NFT as well and the token as well. Because if you're locking the tokens, you're removing them from the supply. So the token appreciation can also come in from there. And I think this is like the best and the easiest utility. And people are like now doing different vaults, placing vaults in Aave and creating DAOs and all these things, or different stuff happening. And that is definitely adding value to this NFT and gaming ecosystem altogether.
Yeah. Well, it presents an interesting scenario in which there's an individual who wants to get these NFTs. He wants to farm these NFTs. And the only way to do it is to play a game he hates. But he's so committed to getting them that he just goes and he plays this game.
Yeah, he has to play. Hours. He has to stake those tokens at least.
I was just thinking, like, there could be, like, let's say that there's a malicious game designer out there. I'm not going to name any names. But he decides that he wants everyone to play like this old game that is super brutal and extremely hard. So he makes an NFT linked to that original game. Mm-hmm. So he uses that from their chain and then creates something in the game that's so super cool and powerful that everyone wants it. So they all are forced to go play this horrible game from the past.
Yeah, I think you have definitely added I think the fun element to it. It's something you hate, but you have to do because it is definitely bringing some value to you, or maybe on the monetary terms or anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know any sadistic designers like that, but I'm sure they exist.
Hopefully with the advancements, we'll see those sadistic designers as well.
Yeah, I bet we will. Wink.
You want to make money? Okay, come and play a game. you want to do get involved with this, you want to just play game or have some fun aspect, you have to be involved definitely. And the DeFi folks as well, if you want to do something, or maybe on the token appreciation part as well. Maybe I'm a trader and I see if I stake particular number of tokens and I can generate some extra revenue out of it or anything. So I have to come use the DeFi aspects of the game as well.
Yeah, at some point, someone's going to have to make NFTs that exist in the real world, and then have a metaverse overlaid on top of it. I know there's already 2 or 3 in the works. One's called Earth 2, I think. And what would happen there, I guess, is you could incentivize someone to go to a real location by dropping NFTs there.
I think there's one certain project who's trying to do something. I forget the name. I think it's very long in the roadmap, but I've also heard one particular project. But Earth 2 hasn't introduced anything around the NFT economy as of now, right? Or have they?
No, I mean, not that I'm aware of. Everyone's doing card games because that's the most obvious application of NFTs.
I think a proper shooting like a game like PUBG or anything like that would require many folds of advancements for now. And definitely you can't bring the game logic to on chain. So it'll definitely the game has to be off chain. So I think that is the easiest way to bring all these players together in the card game. And it's easier than if you let's say just before this bull run, when everyone was not looking into this space, I think fiat on ramps were still there, but then no one thought like they're not bringing a lot of value to any ecosystem. And I have been in industry for a while. I think it's been 4 or 5 years for me, and I have used fiat on ramp just once. I think it was on Poly Market to a prediction market platform, and I think out of that I haven't used any time or anywhere. Now, if you have to onboard like masses, the users from the traditional industry, you can't just ask them come and integrate or manage these wallets and manage your private keys and all these things. You integrate end-to-end meta transactions, place a fiat on ramp there, so they understand. Okay, you have to come just create an account here, get set go. Use your debit card or credit card if you want to buy or sell anything, and I think that's the best way to go about it.
Yeah, but is it what people will do? Because I'm imagining nightmare scenarios because I'm like that. And one of the nightmare scenarios is that the staking is done by someone being in a location the longest. Imagine Pokemon Go, and instead of winning a location based on defeating an opponent and being the master of that area, you have to just stay there. And I'm imagining people camping out in front of buildings and stuff to maintain the longest amount of time.
I don't know how you imagine these weird scenarios, but I think
I don't know.
I think that's like a very weird situation. People camping out of just any place just to earn NFTs or mine tokens.
Yeah, well, I just try to imagine, like, because the staking can be anything. Like the currently cryptocurrency is like it's mining, it's solving mathematical problems with your GPU, but it could theoretically be anything that's connected to a device. So it could be the number of times you swing your phone in a circle, or using the gyroscope, or it could be like having the camera on your face because it can identify your own face. I mean, we could check where everyone.
Yeah, I think anyone can attach anything, any sort of mechanism to it, by which people can generate or maybe generate some tokens or anything, clear a level on a game. But I think the scenarios you have pictured, I think that really got me thinking about so many things. So much sadistic stuff can be also implemented because people are there and it can be done. And I think there was a game as well. I think Blue Whale or something. Have you heard about this game? They gave certain challenges to people and people started committing suicides, and very random shit started happening because of that. They started to give out weird challenges, and when you clear those challenges, they started generating revenue. I think it was pretty bad. I think like people also murdered some other folks. Yeah, so I think those sort of things.
I read deeply into that one, actually. That one really bothered me because it was using psychological tricks to basically take people down the rabbit hole of depression and sort of force them into a artificial depression that would get them to commit suicide. And I mean,
I think that's like the most saddest, and I don't know how mentally depraved someone can be to bring out something like this. Even a lot of relatives and folks were very bothered in India as well. Even my parents asked, "Do you play this game? Have you installed it? Just tell me the truth. Tell me the truth." I said, "No. I haven't. I'd have least interest in playing something like this."
Yeah, I mean that's super villain level garbage.
Yeah.
That's like someone who needs to be hunted down. But like that's the dystopian version, and there's also the dystopian version of like it becomes Big Brother and we're all Big Brother, sort of like pointing our phones at each other to record each other, and that gives us tokens. Like there's like so many dystopian versions I can think, but there's also utopian stuff that we could do with this. And like, so for example, like farming, like you could reward people with tokens for farming. You could reward people with NFTs if they get corn in the real world and bring it to a charity center or something, or with charity NFTs and things like that. Like there's so many positive ways it could be used. And I just wonder where we are in human history in terms of like, have we gotten past all the dark elements within us that we can head towards that utopian future finally, that Star Trek future that we all want?
I think we are far from that, but definitely so many folks are working to a single goal. So I think we'll definitely be able to defeat. I think this blue whale, and there have been certain scenarios, but I think these are like very odd things happening.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, that's what happens when evil crosses with intelligence. Usually evil is dumb. And that's for the best.
Yeah, I think movies are, yeah. I think the Terminator has taught us that.
Oh, we can get into AI and how that could be a whole thing, but I hope, we shouldn't. I have some very dark dystopian futures involving AI in my mind.
I think AI is the best example for it. Yeah.